This is my heater. I dare you to hit it.
He'll be sorry.
Want the heater? I'll give it to you.
Basketball, maybe they don't hit it.
A swing and a drive to deep right.
Clear the deck. Cannonball coming.
Left field. It is out of here.
What up? What's good? We're back. Baseball Unstitched. Ready to rock. Man, that College World Series was a lot of fun. Flax is on the road this week, if you couldn't tell. And I don't even know how his weekend went. So, Flax, how did the weekend go?
Yeah, weekend was good. One of my buddies, shout out Eric, got married this weekend in Chicago, so I was in the Windy City. Not very windy. Wish there was a breeze. It was 95, very humid, very hot. At one point, I had to walk about a mile in a suit. Very bad choice. I'm going to apologize to all of our viewers. This week you have me in a swivel chair, so the likelihood that I am moving around in this video is high without me trying. It's just going to happen. But no, otherwise, weekend was good. It was good to see friends. Ready to get back to the grind.
Hey, I'm all about it. Glad you had a good weekend. For anybody who cares, I turned 30 last weekend, and that's all we're going to go with. So what do we got for you today? We're going to be talking about something that Evan and I have talked about a little bit, and that's we're kind of tired of seeing position players pitch. And I don't know, maybe that needs a fix. So we're going to tell you how we might fix that and our thought process through how we make those final blowout innings a little bit more interesting for the fans. Next, we're going to be talking about the two LSU starters who were dominant throughout the season and the postseason. One of those guys in the number one overall pick conversation. And finally, of course, we're going to talk about Cal Raleigh and his MVP hopes because, yeah, we should start talking about it. He's kind of good at baseball. That's what we're going to go with here. But, as always, opening thoughts. Flax, what are you thinking about so far this week?
I'm thinking about the Tampa Bay Rays. There's really no way around it. I watched my Orioles play against them. Honestly, should have taken 3 of 4 from them. Took 2 of 4. That's 2 of the 8 losses they've had in the last 30 games. 22 of their last 30 have been wins for them. They're creeping their way up the AL East standings, trying to chase down the Yankees. But it's happening for a myriad of reasons. Guys like Ryan Pepio are throwing like an ace. His stuff's been nasty. But on top of that, Junior Caminero is as advertised this offseason. He swings the bat so hard, and he's just connecting. Jake Mangum's an incredibly tough out. Jonathan Aranda is an unbelievably hard out. The defense is clean. Just across the board, that team's playing well, and Brendan Lau's bringing the pop. So there's not much more to say about them other than the fact that they are just dominating the game of baseball. Took 2 of 3 from the best team in the league and the Tigers, and kind of solidifying themselves at the top of the league, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, they're rolling right now. Shout out UMD, Brandon Lau. He's been absolutely raking at the current moment. And also, let's not forget, they just called Chandler Simpson back up. So
Yeah,
some more hit tool and some more speed coming, to say the least, for Tampa Bay. They have been on an absolute heater. I've got a quick and easy one here. We got one of our, what I'm going to consider first, which is probably not true, don't miss matchups of the entire year from a pitching perspective. And if you love young pitching and you love young power pitching, well, we know you like Paul Skeens, but if you don't know what Jacob Mizorowski has been doing for the Brewers, here's your opportunity. As Mizorowski will be facing Paul Skeens on Wednesday. Brewers, Pirates, be there or be square. Both of these guys throw fastballs over 100 miles an hour on a consistent basis, and the stuff that Mizorowski possesses, you're going to really enjoy it because Paul Skeens' stuff is gross, and his is getting to that same level.
Did you see they put Mizorowski's hat from his first 2 outings in the Hall of Fame? Because he threw 11 perfect innings to start his career. And I don't know that that was some sort of record or anything, but they did it, and I applaud them for it because it's a really cool way to start your career, and he has looked incredible lately. And that team needed it, right? Like, that team needed a little bit of a spark. Pat Murphy's an incredible manager, and I think he does a good job of trying to elevate them, but sometimes you need a little bit of young blood that comes in and just does the thing. and everybody kind of rallies around it. And they're really starting to play some good baseball with him just in the clubhouse, in the locker room, and then every fifth day now getting on the bump and throwing that way.
Yeah, Mizorowski, it's hard to explain from a standpoint of he has stuff that's in the realm of Skeens where until you see it for yourself, it's truly hard to believe. He throws a quote-unquote slider that is in the mid-90s. It's a slider, it's a cutter. I don't really care. I mean, it is buckling knees left and right when he comes in on the inner half. People don't know what to do with it. And when you combo something like that with 102 and a solid changeup, I'm not really sure what else people want.
He's spinning the ball, and this is the same thing that Skeens does, the same thing that a lot of like power arms can do, but not all those power arms have off speed. That's also a power off speed. And so he's spinning the ball so much that hitters are having a really hard time identifying which direction it's going to go. And so when he throws it on the inner half, it looks like you're going to get a fastball in the ribs because 92 to 94 is a hard fastball. And it turns left from the pitcher's point of view and all of a sudden goes and falls over the middle of the plate or runs even off the plate. And you as a hitter, you're either backed off the plate or you're standing there watching it hit the mitt and wondering what the heck you did wrong. It is not only swing and miss stuff, it's watch and miss stuff as a hitter. And that is a different level. It just is, right? Like it's a different level that only some guys possess. So I hope he keeps it up. You know, if he keeps consistently being in the zone with it, it's that kind of stuff that you start to think about. Like, I don't know how guys adjust to it. You think about guys like Zach Wheeler. You think about guys like a Paul Skeens where teams don't adjust. They just kind of get lucky. Hitters don't adjust. They just kind of happen to get something to hit. And even hitters will tell you, like, I'm okay losing 4 or 5 times in the battle, but if the one time I do get the pitch I think I'm going to get from him and I put it out or I put it in the gap, I win, right? Like that's the mentality. 100%. And I genuinely think Mizorowski's stuff is at that caliber if he stays in the zone with 3 or 4 pitches.
Yeah, and right now, again, sporting a fastball, changeup, slider, curveball. He's only thrown the changeup 4 times. It has a 100% whiff rate. I just think that's a funny stat, just throwing it out there. Like, the 4 times he's thrown it, nobody can hit it. And it's a very small sample size, but it makes me. I
haven't watched it enough to know, but I'm very curious how many of those were caught by the catcher in the air.
I think that's a fair.
Right, like I'm wondering if all 4 of them were just buried deep in a count when guys were just hoping it was a low fastball and it just was never there when they swung.
Well, he's got to boot his change of pace pitch is his curveball. It has 44.8 inches of drop. So yeah. It's kind of good. I mean, throwing it out there. So where we're really going with this is appointment television on Wednesday night, guys. Go watch Pirates Brewers. I know many of you had no idea that you were going to be saying that this week. But yeah, Pirates Brewers. Get it on the TV screen. Enjoy yourselves. Let's move ourselves into topic number 1 of the day. And that's the fact that Evan and I are really tired of watching position players pitch. Blowout, getting blown out. I don't know that I care anymore, Flax. It's kind of getting annoying.
I don't even know that it's all blowouts anymore. I texted you about this the other day, and that's why it became a topic for today. The Orioles were losing 9-0, and they put a guy who is 2 days on the roster at shortstop on the mound to pitch in a 9-0 game in the 8th and 9th. For me, it's not a situation where you're trying to conserve. It's not a situation where you're trying to keep yourself in a game anymore, and I don't understand why not. You literally were up 8-0 on a team not 4 days earlier and ended up losing. And you basically make the decision to do the opposite of what that team did late in the game and kind of mail it in and say, this could turn into 14, 15, nothing like that, or we could keep it at 9-0 and this is a Hail Mary. I think my biggest issue is that you carry 13 pitchers as a major league ball club, and you're telling me you didn't have a guy who could throw 2 innings? What are we doing here? It's bothersome because it just dilutes the level of watchability that this game is supposed to bring. the fact that you all of a sudden you get to the 8th inning and you basically just lose 90% of your viewers for a game that's on a channel that's trying to grow its viewer base on a Roku Sunday leadoff game. For the league as a whole, you have to find a way to make that not the case. And I think that was where I was coming from with you, was like, I want to talk about it because I want to come up with a solution. You came up with a great solution, and I want you to talk about your solution. But you came up with a great solution to how we could potentially curb this behavior, because it's really consistently happening and it's not fun to watch anymore.
You know, one of the big things that I feel really almost privileged to talk about all the time is how important it is to me that the game of baseball grows internationally and domestically. I think that this is such a great game, and the things that we do to make it more watchable for an audience have a huge effect on that. And I can only imagine watching a baseball game for the first time, and I'm watching Dodgers Marlins, and the Dodgers are up 12-6, and here comes Kike Hernandez in his little semi-half helmet, and he just starts lobbing balls in there in the 7th inning. And I just want that to sit with everybody for a second. Do you think anybody's going to stop, turn around, and go, God, that was the coolest thing I ever watched? Nobody's going to do that. And I'm not saying blowouts are fun to watch. Let me be very clear. But we can do something different. So here's the solution that I came up with. And it's going off of another rule that we currently have. That rule would be the doubleheader 27th man taxi squad guy. I think is it 27 or 28? I think it's 27th man.
Yep.
And in my opinion, what we could do is weekly, a big league roster would be able to carry a quote-unquote taxi squad minor league pitcher who could only throw in blowout games. There's a couple things that would have to go into this. One, we would categorize blowouts as any game that is through 6 full innings, and we could put the mark around 8 to 10 runs. That's debatable. That's fine with me to be considered blowouts. Any minor league pitcher would be eligible for this slot. This would not affect a player's major league service time, so we would consider this quote-unquote showcase innings for this guy to show his arm in low leverage situations. This player would get paid a major league salary for the week that he's with the team, and teams would not be allowed to carry the same player as their taxi squad minor league pitcher in a calendar month. I think this really helps solve it. Is it a little bit more travel for a minor league player who is already traveling a lot? Absolutely. But the chance to pitch in front of a major league crowd, get an opportunity to showcase your stuff on the biggest stage, while also still giving fans a reason to stop and watch because the guy on the mound's still throwing 90 plus.
Or because he's a name that your team is waiting to see.
Yeah.
Right?
It could be. Who knows? I'm not saying every team would be. That was the big negative I saw of this, is the teams are going to be the ones who dictate who that person is. So, like, could teams essentially go out and sign some old heads to just taxi squad around with them on their AAA roster?
Still better than a pitcher or a position player in my mind.
I agree, but I also see it as an opportunity to quote-unquote showcase. I mean, listen, can everybody think about how cool it would have been to see a Paul Skeens for a blowout 2 innings the year he got drafted just because? It wouldn't hurt him, more than likely, I like to think. Maybe I'm wrong. But, like, I think something like this could be a good solution. And one of the big reasons I bring something up like this now and we have these discussions is because Major League Baseball over the last 5 years has been very focused on changes that make the game more appealing to watch. And they've done a very good job, as much as a lot of us traditionalists have been very critical. But to be fair, they've put these things in place. People are stealing more bases. Games are faster. You know, there's maybe a little bit less of a chess match, but, like, you're forcing lefties to throw to righties rather than having the in-and-out specialist happening, which is making games at times more interesting. So how can we continue to do that in a way that's not a golden at bat? Right? And I think this is a solution that is not a golden at bat, euphoric, crazy situation. It's realistic. So, I don't know. I like it. I think it might help.
Yeah. I think, again, where the conversation came from was how we're really invested in wanting the game to grow. We want it to be more watchable. We want it to be more engaging. For those folks that traditionally don't like things like the Savannah Bananas and the outliers of the game that are bringing a lot of eyeballs to it, you probably also don't like position players pitching. And when it does
100%.
happen, it is frustrating. It doesn't feel right for the game. There are situations where it should be able to happen. When you're in the 15th inning of a game and you're down to a minimal bench and you've gotten through pitchers to get to that point, you don't have a choice.
You better hope Cags is on your roster, baby.
Right, but the guy you're putting up there also isn't going in and lobbing the ball, especially if you're in extra innings. So it's a different situation altogether, and that is a more watchable scenario. And this is just for you and I, something that came up this week, and it's been coming up all season. And for a while there, I didn't necessarily feel that way, and I was just like, oh, it's part of the game. But it just feels like it's happening so much more frequently now. And teams are getting to the 6th, 7th inning. Well, yeah, but teams are getting to the 6th and 7th inning and basically just mailing it in. And they'll start mailing it in when it's 7 or 8-0. And I don't like that. I think I would set the number somewhere between 10 and 12 run differential.
I think that's totally fair. I think
it's got to be double digits at a minimum. It's got to be double digits. Yeah. It's got to be double digits at a minimum. I think it can't be 8 runs. 8 runs is absolutely doable from the 6th inning on as a major league ball club. Bullpens are great. It doesn't happen all the time, but it is certainly doable. So that's all I have on that. I just thought it was a worthwhile topic for us to dive into. And, you know, for as much as it's been happening lately, I feel like there's probably a lot of people that feel the same way we do. So if you do, let us know.
I'm sure we'll certainly find out. That's one thing I can guarantee. So on to topic number 2. I'm excited for this one. LSU this weekend clinched the men's college national championship for baseball. And, well, let me tell you what. They had 2 starters who showed out. Flax.
Yes.
Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson were stellar throughout the playoffs, and both of them stellar in their College World Series starts. We got to start with the guy who now looks like he might be the front runner to go 1-1, and that's Cade Anderson. Cade Anderson was the ace for LSU this year. He's a 6'2" left-hander. His arsenal sporting a 4-seam fastball, curveball, changeup, and slider. His fastball, for any of you who did not get to see it this past weekend, is a high-ride fastball. The IVB on his fastball generally is around 19 inches of vertical break. That is outstanding already at this level, topping at 97 from the left side. Anderson strikes me as a guy who his top table comp for me is Max Fried. I see a lot of Fried in him when he throws. What he has is absolutely devastating. 10 IVB on the changeup and a 10-mile-an-hour difference. The slider is a little bit sweepy. The curveball has a ton of depth, and he's still throwing it at 80 miles an hour. Flax, I love this guy's arm, and I'm happy my team has the number 1 overall pick and gets to consider him. What are your thoughts on Cade Anderson?
I look at him, and I think at first I didn't necessarily see the Max Fried comp that everybody is seeing, and then I think the more I looked at it, the more it made a lot of sense with the bendy curveball. I think the way he attacks hitters is a little bit different, and I think the way that his fastball works at a little bit of a higher tick allows him to be a little bit more dominant. But the biggest thing is that he just doesn't shy away from hitters. When you watch him attack the zone, you watch him attack it. That's how you get to throw complete games. That's how you get to throw 100-plus innings in a college season, is when you go through lineups over and over again, pounding the zone, throwing strikes, letting guys get themselves out, and then leveraging your nasty off speed out of the zone when you can. That's how he's successful, and I think watching him showcase himself into the deepest spots of this season, even getting to the College World Series final and before, it was very apparent that the way he carried himself, the way he brought himself to the mound, was that he was going to control the pace. He was going to own the entire game, the entire step of the way. And that's what he did. And it was phenomenal to watch. He's, lefties are special. And he showed us why. And it happens every single year that there is a guy that steps up. And for a couple different teams, it happened in different ways. But what a pitcher's duel we were given in Game 1 of the College World Series Final. We knew we were going to get it from the LSU side. I did not know we were going to get it to the same level on the Coastal Carolina side, and credit to them for being able to put that together. A 1-0 win is something to be proud of, especially when you throw all 9 innings and absolutely dominate a lineup the way that Cade Anderson did.
Yeah, Anderson and his numbers, they speak to the exact same thing that you talked about, his willingness to attack hitters. In the 2025 season, he threw to the tune of 83 innings, a 3.47 ERA, a 3.11 FIP. But what was most impressive is a 39% K rate and a 7% walk rate. In that game, he walked 5 guys, and what people don't realize is that's not normally something that he's going to do. And then when you walk 5 guys over a full 9 innings, it's not nearly as bad as you might think off the top of your head. His performances in the playoffs put him to the tune of a 2.5 ERA, still striking out 33% and a slightly higher tick of an 8% walk rate. This is a guy who does not shy away when the lights are the brightest, and everything they had to say about him as a teammate and a leader on that squad was very impressive. Now there's another guy who's a position player that we'll probably talk about on Sunday in our live stream when we dive a little bit deeper into the Men's College World Series and what our thoughts were on it on our live stream again Sunday. But we'll talk about him at another point in time. The only knock that I see on Cade Anderson, and I actually think this could be I'm going to make the joke. We've been talking about reverse mulligans on social media for golf. How about a reverse knock? Is that Anderson had Tommy John surgery. I believe it was after his junior year of high school, sat out his entire senior year. I'm not sure that TJ Early's a knock anymore. As scary as that statement is coming out of my mouth, teams are just assuming people are going to have it. So does that mean he's
like it's built in already?
Maybe we're okay? I've got no idea at this point. So listen, this guy has weapons. His slider became an absolute out pitch that looks like it could be a plus pitch at the next level. He worked throughout the offseason on revamping it, showed it off all season long as a legitimate put-away pitch. Gosh, I can't believe I'm saying it because 6 weeks ago, I think my head was in another place, but I think there's a high likelihood that we see Anderson's name called at 1-1 for the Nats.
When you look at what the Nats are truly building right now and what they're looking for, you'd think it would either be an impact bat that could get there quickly or a younger bat that could extend the window as somebody potentially moves out, not being able to sign a longer-term contract. You don't often think of a pitcher who could be ready to go in a short order. But when you look at what he is, it feels like it would be a big swing and a miss not to go that direction. It feels like one of those guys that you've seen the White Sox take any number of the last 4 or 5 years. And when we look at what those guys are already doing in the minor leagues, it's like, well, they're going to be ready and a part of their rotation next year. And we expect that rotation to get elevated from the bottom to the top. I guess they're not in the bottom anymore, but from the middle of the league to the top of the league pretty quickly because of those impact arms. And when you think about pairing a Cade Anderson with a Mackenzie Gore, I kind of want them to go down that route. And then say to yourself, if that's our move, then you got to spend the money on the bats you have today. And you got to reshape, if you're Mike Rizzo, you got to reshape what your plan is for the next 6 to 10 years and say, okay, this guy you can't miss on him. Let's go for it. And then you reshape the rest of your plan. That's my thought process.
I think that, and we won't dive too deep into what we think the Nats are going to do at 1, because this is content that will be coming out to you guys sooner than later as we work on what we're going to call the Baseball Unstitched Draft Board. And we do have a few interviews in the pipeline with some Major League scouts that we're really excited to share with you guys. My only comment on 1-1 is I would totally agree with you when you look at the roster construction of the Nationals. you either are going to go an impact arm that you know will get there soon, and you expect the top of your rotation to look like Gore, Anderson, and Sikora within 2 years, or you go with the best high school bat on the board, knowing that you have to spread out the contracts of the bats, and you expect and believe that your development system will do its job and make sure that the high school bat is what you think they are at 1. Because at 1, you should be taking somebody you can dream on 100% of the time, regardless of if that's Anderson for the Nats, Holiday for the Nats. There's a lot of other names we could talk about. We'll get there, and we're excited to bring that to you guys as well. Let's go to the other LSU impact arm, and Anthony Ianson looked outstanding in the final game of the College World Series.
He almost didn't get enough hype coming into that game.
His numbers,
just considering what his season,
were better than Anderson's were this year.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so fascinating when you look at it, right?
Yes, the dichotomy of what he does. We'll talk about who Ianson looks like to us, because there's one that's kind of really funny, and we'll hope that you go and watch and you see what we're getting at here. But Ianson's listed as a 6'2" right-hander. We're going to go with that. His arsenal: four-seam fastball, curveball, changeup, and slider. His fastball sitting between 92 and 94, topping at 98. He does have a little cut ride to that fastball. So that fastball is for him moving a little bit glove side with the 17 IVB. It does at times get very straight. That is the only true knock that I see on Ianson. The last thing we want is a fastball to get a little dead zoney. His at times has the tendency to do that, but we're not here to focus on any of the negatives for him. His slider is legitimately the best pitch in his arsenal. It's his put-away pitch. He can throw it wherever he wants, and when he decides he is going to throw it past you, it goes past you. He very rarely leaves in the middle of the zone. His mix is solid. I like what Ianson does. He right now is looked at as a compensation round pick, maybe somewhere right after the first round. When somebody cuts a deal with him and he goes in the top 25, it just won't surprise me at all. In the 2025 season, he threw to the tune of 81.1 innings, a 2.88 ERA, a 1.99 FIP, 36% strikeout rate, and a 10% walk rate. Flax, Ianson's a stud, and he reminds me of Marcus Stroman. And
I know.
It is really funny because his set with his hands, his position's not as loaded on the back foot, but his set and his initial move, then his load to the plate is very, very similar to what we've seen from Stroman mechanically. And listen, Marcus Stroman's been in the league for, 13 years now? That's not a bad comp for anybody.
When you look at LSU and what they're doing with pitchers right now, Jay Johnson said it after they won the College World Series, their head coach. He said, there is no better place in the country to develop to become a big league pitcher right now. That's what he truly believes, and I don't doubt that he has every right to feel that way. They got Ianson from UC San Diego. He threw in 23 and 24 at UC San Diego, and was not bad by any means. Right? Was Big West all second team, pitcher of the week, had solid numbers. The transition getting to LSU, facing a higher level of talent and developing an off-speed pitch that truly allows you to dominate at what I would call, in some sense, the next level of college baseball, shows what Jay Johnson's talking about. It is the perfect kid to point to and say, we took a kid who, after his sophomore year, was on draft radar, got to the level of SEC baseball, which for a lot of scouts is looked at as, at this point, a very comparable effort considering how good some of the hitters are. And he puts up better numbers in the regular season than a kid who we are now talking about potentially being a 1-1 or even a top 3 pick in the draft. When you watched what he did at a minimum against Coastal, what you can tell from that slider and what the beauty of throwing a little bit of a cut ride fastball is that they kind of come out of the hand the same way. And when you saw a lot of really bad swings on the slider because it looks like the fastball. Guys are starting their swing way too early. We saw guys who take incredibly professional at-bats. Caden Bodine is a perfect example of this. Hit balls off the end of the bat, back to the pitcher, to second base in that game, because staying back on that slider when he can pump 92 to 94 up inside that also has a little bit of ride is really, really, really difficult to face, especially when it's hard to see. Caden Bodine did not miss fastballs in the zone. He also didn't swing at a lot of off-speed out of the zone. That's why he was such a good hitter. The fact that Ianson was able to deceive such good hitters and make at-bats look so bad because of the way the ball left his hand, the way he was able to set up that off-speed, is why he pitched so well in that game. And I think that it also set him up well to be more projectable going forward, because what his stuff is and what his body is known to be capable of allows pitching coaches and developmental guys at the next level to say, I want to take him higher. He may not be looked at as going higher, so we may be able to sign him under slot, but I like the future capabilities of this guy because I like the body movements. I know he can spin the ball well, and I know that we can work with that to turn it into what we know works for a guy that kind of gets around it and maybe supinates a little bit more. And I think that's what we got to see from him. Outside of the production of how good he was in that game, it really showed off what his capabilities can be down the line.
And moving schools the way he did, coming to the SEC where the level of talent from a hitting perspective is higher, also shows his overall level of coachability. There is a part of this and a portion of this where, listen, I can sit here and tell you all about his postseason stats, and I can talk about his FIP and his K rate until I fall over and I'm blue in the face. The things that we wish we got to do is we got to meet these people, learn more about their process and how they handle themselves. One of the things Johnson brings up to the public is he not only shows that LSU can develop pitchers, but let me be very clear, everybody. You have to be willing to go through development. It's not something that is for everybody. Not everybody can walk in and allow themselves to be told maybe their elite stuff is not as good as they think, and here's how we help you make it better. Not everybody takes that the same way. And to watch guys go to LSU and very obviously take the coaching is an impressive thing. And it's another reason why these guys will move up boards, because we're not going to hear anything but positive things about their off-the-field effort as well, or so that's what I believe.
It's an incredibly difficult fan base, too. And I don't mean that in a bad way, right? Like, no. It is one of the greatest fan bases in college baseball. It also is an incredibly difficult fan base to play for and to play in front of. Expectations are extremely high, as they should be at that level, and this is why. They just won their 8th College World Series title. If you don't think that that's the expectation every single year from that fan base to come over from the Big West into the SEC and step into one of what I would call the top 3 toughest fan bases to really play in front of, if you're not doing what you said you thought you could come over and do, you're going to hear about it. That's just the way it goes. And so to have the confidence to come over and say, no, I can do that, and not be so stuck in your metal to say, I'm going to do it my way because I know my way got me here, shows the level of coachability to me.
Not to go off too far of a tangent, and we'll get to the next conversation here, but very good example for people who do not know the passion of LSU baseball fans. Tommy Tanks, a couple of years back, still ended up hitting, I think, 25 home runs in the regular season, but the first few weeks were not great for Tommy White at LSU, and everybody let him hear it a little bit. And I don't say that in a negative way, right? When you play for that passionate of a fan base who cares the way LSU fans do, there's expectations involved. And proving that you can play in front of those expectations is just another chip on the shoulder when you get the opportunity to go to the next level. because it allows teams to know that you can handle it. And it's one of the coolest things that's happening across college baseball right now is we are seeing these stadiums get filled up. We are seeing fan bases have these expectations, and players are learning real quickly what it may be like to be a professional baseball player. And I think that can only benefit young men in these situations.
And I do, before we move on to off of this topic, I do want to talk about one other arm who we did not talk about before this, but I had to throw him in here because if you didn't watch, LSU only used 3 pitchers en route to win the championship series final. They used Cade Anderson, they used Anthony Ianson, and then they also used Chase Shores. And if you have not watched Chase Shores throw a baseball, you need to, because he pumps triple digits and it has life. This is a kid who came off a Tommy John surgery in 2023, medical redshirt in 2024, hopped back up on a mound for 2025, and they started him out as a starter this year. His first 9 appearances of the year, he started. Not great, to be quite honest with you. They moved him into the bullpen, started a little slow, and then by the time he got to the South Carolina series in mid-May, he became virtually untouchable until Little Rock in a regional was the only team to beat them in a regional, only team to beat them in the postseason, happened to put 4 up off of him, and then Arkansas in the College World Series put 4 runs up off of him, 3 of which were earned, and if you really watched that game, were kind of barely earned. I don't know how many of those balls off of him actually left the infield. His stuff is absolutely dominant. He is a redshirt sophomore. It will absolutely play at the next level. And I couldn't move on from this topic without talking about Chase Shores because he's so electric and fun to watch. And if we were going to talk about the LSU pitchers that won them the national championship, we couldn't forget the only other guy that threw. We had to talk about all 3.
Yeah, Shores was blowing 101 with arm side ride past people and spotting up his slider, which had, I believe, a variance of around, I think it was 12 miles an hour.
Which credit to the Coastal guys, they didn't just go down punching, right? No. Like they were putting the ball in play, and like the LSU defense was phenomenal to win the final game in a situation where like you gotta kind of keep your mettle in the bottom of the ninth and turn a double play to finish it. Like not easy stuff to do.
Yes. But now in his last 3 innings, he did have a stretch where he struck out 4 in a row. They put really good at bats up against 101 with that much arm side run and a guy who actually, in this scenario, and I don't say actually poorly to Shores, but he had consistent command of his slider in these outings, especially down the stretch. When he has command of his slider, it makes that 101 with arm side ride that much more unhittable.
And this isn't like a Mason Miller fastball slider combo, right? Like it's not like the greatest slider you've ever seen. But if he can spin a fastball like that, he can probably learn how to spin a slider pretty well, and he can develop it and continue making it better and sharper, and you can just continue to grow the stretch of break from one side to the next and tunnel that fastball and that slider. Him already showing the ability to command both, not just control them, but command them in really tight situations, good or bad in terms of pitch shape, is enough for me to feel really good about him.
He'll be in somebody's bullpen here sooner than later. When you see the name Shores, you're gonna know. Dotting 101 away with arm side run that starts in the other batter's box is not generally considered fair, and he did it multiple times in that game.
Just throwing it around the barrel?
Throwing it around the zone is what it feels like at 101.
Yeah.
I think I can hit a lot of things, not pretending like I can hit that. Either way, we had one more piece of this College World Series that we had to talk about here, and I didn't even bring it up in the intro, but we definitely got to talk about it. Very interesting start to that last game, huh, Flax?
Yeah. So I was on a plane. I was very fortunate that the plane was one of which that had the little DirecTV things on the back of the seat in front of me. But I did not have headphones. So if you remember how that all shook out, guy steals second base. and on a pitch that was not a strike, I think it was a slider up and in, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't a strike. Got called a strike. Kid's safe at second base. I can't hear the broadcasters, so I'm just watching the game, and I'm thinking, okay, kid stole second base. That was a bad call. I'll move on to the next one. All of a sudden, they're showing Coastal's head coach Schnall coming out of the dugout and yelling at the umpire, saying what for, and then holding up a 3 to him, which he then later said, like, I was telling him he's already missed 3 pitches. Talk about the first inning of a baseball game. And he's saying, you've already missed 3 pitches, and he's already thrown him out. And then, pile on top, he goes out to have a conversation with him, and the umpire from first base comes in guns a-blazing to say something, basically, I'm assuming, to try and de-escalate the situation. The home plate umpire very clearly wanted to handle this situation on his own. He himself, if you slow down the video, actually shoved the other umpire out of his way, because the Coastal head coach was ready to have a conversation with the guy that was coming in, and he started to move into his direction. And then as soon as he saw the home plate umpire shove him away, he stepped up to the home plate umpire. Well, in shoving away that other umpire, the guy fell over. And as the Coastal head coach said it, he was embarrassed in front of 25,000 people and on national television. He was embarrassed, and he didn't want it to come out or to look like he had tripped. He wanted to put it on somebody else. So he then stands up and basically says, that's a 2-game suspension, which had Coastal won yesterday would have meant that their head coach could not coach in that game, which for those who don't know, if you bump an umpire, it's an automatic 2-game suspension on top of getting thrown out of the game. And then the first base coach engages himself, and he gets tossed. So you're talking about 2 coaches in the first inning of what could be the last game of the season for Coastal Carolina get tossed in the first inning of the game. And I think my biggest frustration here is, should you argue balls and strikes? No. Have you ever been allowed to argue balls and strikes? No. But if you're the home plate umpire there and you don't take a second to understand the situation, not let the emotions of the game get the best of you, not a single one of the 18 college-aged players that played in that game, the biggest game of their careers, let the emotions of the game get to them, by the way. But if you as the adult can't, instead of shooing away the head coach, shooing away another adult, if you can't just wave your hand, bring him out, and between the 2 of you look at him and say, hey man, you really shouldn't be arguing balls and strikes. Understand the game we're in. I'm not going to throw you out, even though I already gave you a warning, which I shouldn't have given you a warning already. But even though I gave you a warning, I'm not going to throw you out, but I need you to stop so that I don't have to throw you out here in the first inning of this game, because it's a really big game. Because you should be able to be an adult and do that and not think that the 25,000 people in the stands are there to watch you be an umpire, because they're not. You are a service to the environment. You are a service to the entertainment and the entity. And I don't mean that in a mean way, but knowing your place in the situation is learning how to de-escalate and handle situations like that, and it just wasn't done correctly. Again, should you be arguing balls and strikes in the first inning? No. There's no way that's going to help your team. It's understandable if you want to do it in the 5th and 6th inning of a 1-run ball game, and tensions are high. Doing it in inning number 1 is never going to help you, whether you get thrown out or not. But the way it was handled by the guys who were supposed to be policing the game is inexcusable at that level and on that stage.
Yeah, I think one of the things that the last couple of years have really brought to light, and I say this actually in a positive way, is how important umpires truly are to baseball. And I say that from a standpoint of the reason why people want to replace them is because it's just like everything else. It's because if you don't think people are doing their job at a high enough level, no matter what walk of life you live in, whether it's you or somebody else, people are going to want to replace you. But the importance of what they bring to the game from a standpoint of they do affect the flow of the game, they do police the game most of the time in the proper way, absolutely. I think we tend to get stuck on the things that umpires do poorly, and then that's all we want to talk about. So let's step back and remind people that, like, they're not bad guys, and you agree with this as much as I do. I mean, this was the whole conversation we had coming in. What makes it harder is, I'm going to put this back to what Coach Zuniga said about some of his pitchers when they're on the mound. The game's sped up on Campos, which is crazy because, Campos has been around for a very long time. And a lot of good things I had seen about him too. Like, again, this is not just negative. Umpires they're not all just bad. We can't continue to do that to them. But
no, for the 54 outs a game, for the 54 outs in a baseball game that they call, right? I did that math correctly, right? It's 27 outs on both sides.
Yes.
They do a pretty good job, right? Like, statistically speaking, you'd give most of them a pretty good grade outside of the one or two calls that end up needing to be reviewed or argued. And arguments and reviews don't happen every single game. That is, like, I do want to come at this and understand, for most people, we are not anti-umpire. Like, we do generally appreciate the job that umpires do, and they do it very well. It's not an easy thing to do at all.
Yeah, now going back to this situation, though, absolutely, the game seemed to speed up on Campos. I think his fuse was way too short for a championship game. I think you have to know going into the game as an umpire, there's going to be a lot of emotion from either side, whether you won the day before or you did not win the day before. And maybe throwing out the head coach of a team in the first inning of a game, if it could maybe be talked about real quickly through a general conversation, not the answer. Now, who knows? There could be more to it. Either way, Schnall, though, what an interview. That post-game interview from him was legendary. Yep. That post-game interview will never die. And the quote that will never die from it was, "I can't be held accountable for another man's athleticism."
Yeah, that's tough.
And we need to stop and wow. That's one heck of a quote. And again, for those tracking through the situation, the first base umpire who tripped and fell over, he stood up and said that's 2 games for bumping an umpire when obviously Schnall did not bump him. And that was Schnall's response to it, is I should not be held accountable for another man's athleticism. And the sad thing is if that umpire was embarrassed from the situation, Schnall might have twisted the knife on that one. Yeah. Schnall might have twisted the knife on that one. So nobody likes an ump show at the end of the day, and I'm going to say it that way because I think it's a very fair way to say it. To the credit of that group, they did a pretty darn good job after the first inning. However, that situation deflated one side, and nobody likes that. And I think a more competitive game could have happened if Schnall and the first base coach are not thrown out. So either way, no need to harp on this any longer than we have. I wanted to give you guys some thoughts that we had on that whole crazy first inning situation. Let's move on to something a little bit more positive here. And that's Cal Raleigh's still good at baseball. The big dumper is a thumper. He has now passed Johnny Bench's record for home runs by a catcher prior to the All-Star break. And he's hit 2 more since then. He's hit 2 more since breaking the record, too. It's not even like he was just like, I'm going to hit 29 and wait 4 weeks.
No, 3.
He's still
I guess breaking the record. Yeah, 2 more. Sorry. Bad enough. Again.
So, listen, there's basically 3.5 weeks till the All-Star break, and he's already broken this record. The Seattle Mariners... Go ahead.
Oh, by the way, he's like a top 5 catcher defensively in the league.
I did look. You're going to be disappointed. I think he's around 6 right now. I know. What a bummer for us.
That's going to be a half point.
Yeah, well.
Damn it.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't know why I helped. I shouldn't have. See? We're already screwing up. Either way, the Mariners' record for home runs before an All-Star break is 35 by Ken Griffey. I mean, he's 4 away from that with 3.5, 4 weeks to go. Cal Raleigh is... Guys, I just don't even know what to say anymore. We've been talking about him all year. Somebody put a torpedo bat in his hands, and
yeah, right. That's
he was good before the torpedo bat, but then he was like, damn, these torpedoes are sick. And all he's done is hit home runs since then.
I think one of the other things for the Mariners just winning ball games is that they're also getting on base in front of him, right? RBIs are high because he's not just hitting solo shots, which is really important for any team to win, but definitely for that team to win.
At home,
that was a big
Seattle.
problem for them last year, was that they didn't give themselves enough opportunities to score runs. And now you've got a guy who is leading the league in home runs that is also doing it with men on base. It's so fun to watch. To do it, not just in T-Mobile, but he's doing it in other ballparks that are also not easy places to hit the ball out. Like daytime games in Chicago at Wrigley, the wind does not blow out most days. That's not an easy place to hit balls out. And he was the ball that he hit to break the record out to left field, I thought it was a fly ball to left. He just smoked it. And it is so cool. And he's a switch hitter too, which I love. He's doing it from both sides, which is really, really excites me more than anything. But blew away the record for switch hitters before the All-Star break and home runs. He is doing unprecedented things at the catching position. And I think other than Ronald Acuna Jr., and the only reason I might put it higher is just at this point, knock on wood, is health. He just signed a 6-year, $105 million contract that I think might be the best contract in baseball. I think financially, Shohei's contract is the best contract in baseball, quite obviously. But for the production he is giving offensively and defensively, for the impact that he has to a team, and for what he is actually costing them year in and year out, I don't think you could have bought that off the street for anything better. Truly.
For when Jackson comes on and does Stat Guy, Jackson, when you hear this, if you don't mind, can you give everybody Cal Raleigh's first 2, maybe 2.5 weeks of the season? Because what people don't realize is he didn't come out crazy hot.
No.
And he has just been on an absolute torrid heater. And it's just been impressive. So let's talk about how we've gotten here with Cal Raleigh. To his credit, whiff rate, chase rate, and K rate are all well improved. And what is this telling us? His pitch selection. We talk about pitch selection so much on this podcast, guys, because at this level, it's getting the right pitches and then taking advantage of those pitches at the most consistent rate you can. So when we see a guy whose whiff rate, chase rate, and K rate are all improved, that is directly affecting the increase in barrel rate and barrel percentage that we're seeing from Cal Raleigh. He's not missing the pitches that they're giving him over the plate. Jackson added in here too, as a reminder to everybody, his sweet spot percentage is up. His hard hit percentage is up. I mentioned barrels. He's walking more. He's also whiffing and chasing slightly less. Again, Jackson, thank you for making me look good as our analytical guy. But he's mashing fastballs, which is Flax's favorite thing in the world to watch hitters do. Yep. He had a -2 run value in 2024 on fastballs. He has a 10 run value on fastballs this year. He has an 8 run value on sinkers, which people are going to try to dive those in on him, especially to try to limit the power of which he has. He had a 1 run value on sinkers in 2024. His pull air rate, which this is the debatable one, but Jackson, for Cal Raleigh, will give you pull air rate. His pull air rate is up from 29.5% to 37.4%.
No, I like pull air rate for him because he's a guy that is just going to, it's not worth him ever hitting a ground ball. Right? It's the same thing for Schwarber. Schwarber would also be a guy that I do like pull air rate for because we're not looking for them to be a versatile hitter. Does Cal Raleigh steals bases? I don't think we also need to talk about that. He does steal bases, especially at an elite level for a catcher. But if Cal Raleigh is a double home run strikeout guy, I'm not upset by that. Which to me would scream go ahead and put the ball in the air pull side. If you start doing that more, you probably will increase your home run numbers, and I'm fine with that.
So my
for
only, though I do agree with you that he probably leans more towards the Schwarber side of the fence. We're talking about a guy right now with 31 home runs. 9 of them are the opposite way.
Ooh.
3 of them are dead center. Where I'm going with this simply is that, like,
That's almost half his home runs.
Raleigh has been such a good hitter that I care about Raleigh putting the ball in the air. I don't necessarily care that he pulls it. I guess that's where I come from with that, and that's my analytical thought process. However, I get a pull the ball in the air mindset for a guy like Cal Raleigh, because when he does it, it's going to go a long way. He has just proven this year that he is a great hitter. And he was showing it the last couple of years. But we are talking about a guy, for those of you who don't love the analytical metrics that we have thrown out, he was hitting last 2 years, 232, 220. Okay? He is now hitting 276 this year. That is a 50-plus point jump when you look at last year. Cal Raleigh is a good hitter. He is not just going to shove the ball over the fence. He can spray the ball the other way with authority. I just love what he's doing. So let's get to the root cause of this conversation. Aaron Judge has been magical. Is Cal Raleigh in the MVP conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of pieces here that help. I don't know if Judge has necessarily reached the peak of voter fatigue nearly the way that Shohei has, where the conversation really starts ramping up. But I do think it's real. I do think when someone else is doing something special, it's extremely impressive. I think the position they play is really important to me. I think if you can make the playoffs, which because the position is so important, it has to be something that pushes your team to that next level, right? You can't be a 500 ball club and say, oh, because he's a catcher, his offensive stats mean more. You got to have a good pitching staff and be a good catcher for that to matter. I think he's done that. Now, they're middle of the pack, lower third, almost lower third in team ERA, but it's still a sub-4 ERA. But he plays like every day. He catches so many games, and he still hits this way. It is borderline unsustainable, right? Like, we can't really have a conversation about a catcher hitting 60 home runs because the reality of a catcher playing enough days to do it a lot of times doesn't happen, but also just because it is such a hard position to play. I think that if Cal Raleigh gets up to 50 home runs, finishes the season hitting around 270, and is also a high-level defensive catcher for a team that makes the playoffs, I think it's a very real conversation to say the full body of work beats out a guy like Aaron Judge who could hit 320 with 60 bombs.
I think it's a more neck-and-neck conversation than a lot of people want to admit. I agree that Judge is doing some things, especially when it comes to, how about I go with the word consistency, because the guy's still hitting like 360, if I remember correctly.
It's like 370 still.
Yeah. Raleigh is in the mix, whether people want to admit it or not, and part of it is because he is a catcher. He's playing as much as he's playing and handling a pitching staff at an elite level while doing this with the bat. We talk about things that we haven't seen in a long time. A power hitter hitting 370 is one of those things. A catcher hitting 31 home runs, playing just about every day from a standpoint of what a catcher can do, and putting his team on the back the way Raleigh is. Oh, by the way, he's a switch hitter too, adding to his platoon split value. Hard to say Raleigh shouldn't be in the conversation. I will say, like it or not, if the season ended today, I don't think he gets the votes to win. But this is something
I think
that
where
we
Judge
should
is
be
at.
watching.
I think
This
where
is
Judge
something
is
we
at
should be
is.
watching.
But again, to me, saying like Cal Raleigh's home run pace may not be sustainable is the same thing as me saying I don't think Judge is going to hit 370 when 162 is
100%.
done.
Well, and listen,
But I think I think Judge could still fall 50 points, and we'd still look at it and say, what a magical season, because
but
it's going
we
to
can
be
also
paired
make
with
the
another
point right
30
now.
home runs.
We can also make the point right now that if either of them continues those paces and the other does not, that guy will win. I promise you that.
Yeah, I think that's
That
fair.
is the one thing that I think people should pay attention to is if Judge ends the season is hitting 350 plus it may not matter what Raleigh did, but the only way Raleigh stays in the conversation is if he hits 65 home runs like he's on pace for.
It feels like it's going to be a very, neck and neck race at the top. My real question for you, and this is not on our outline, so you're going to have to come up with something off the top of your head.
Oh, God.
Who's third?
Who's third right now in the AL?
Because I know who I know who I think it would be.
This is not on the outline. Who do I think is third?
Mm-hmm. And I think you're thinking about hitters right now, and I urge you to think across the entire board of the MLB.
No. I know.
Or at least the AL.
Well, I'm not going to think about across the MLB because it turns out there's half of those groups that are not currently eligible. I was going to say something that would have dug the knife into a certain fan base. We're not going to do that today. I have no idea. I'm not going to pretend like I do. For some reason, I think you're getting it DeGrom, which is kind of funny.
No. I think an easy number 3 that would get MVP votes today is Tarek Skubal.
Oh, well, yeah. I guess I can't deny you there. Skubal
right? Like,
has
I think
been
it's
unreal.
And I think enough so that there's not another hitter I would look at that would be third in that conversation.
Yeah,
but I don't think he cracks the 1-2 discussion with Raleigh and Judge, only because he's got the knock against him that he doesn't affect more than every 5th game.
Wow, what a good question. I was totally unprepared for.
I thought you were going to have something for me. That's
No,
okay. I apologize. I put you in an unprepared situation. I don't want to apologize to you. I apologize to the listeners that I put you in an unprepared situation. I apologize to them that they had to listen to that deafening silence that we gave.
Yeah, that was tough. Well, either way,
we appreciate you continuing to listen to said episode as we get close to closing it out here.
Final thoughts before Jackson comes on and roasts us for whatever we did wrong this week, Flex.
Final thoughts. Astros fans are not going to be happy because Jeremy Pena has officially become a client of Boris Corp. And anytime you become a client of Scott Boras, you either get one of two things. You either get an extremely long, very expensive contract when you play to the level that Jeremy Pena is playing to, or you don't get said long extension and you go to free agency and your current team tends to lose out on you at that point, especially when your team name is the Astros and Dana Brown generally doesn't like to give out contracts longer than 4 to 5 years. So, Astros fans, enjoy Jeremy Pena while you have him. He is very good. He's very fun to watch. And I think Scott Boras got himself another good client.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with everything you just said. I'm quick today. The draft's coming up. We've talked a lot about some of the draft things that we're doing. I want to give people an early reminder that you're going to see a lot of draft predictions come out, and these guys are slotted here, and I'd take this guy this way. In a lot of sports, the NFL, the NBA, when we watch these drafts, it's, oh, I wonder where this best player is going to go, and I think he should go here because of X need, this, that, and the other. The MLB draft truly doesn't work that way, and the only thing I want to clue everybody in on now before we start having draft discussions is players will come to the table, high school, college players, especially with 1 year of leverage, so that would be redshirt sophomores or juniors, and say, I want this number, and I'm happy to come out. It's less about where we've been drafted and more about what you want from a financial standpoint. There's a lot that goes into what they offer high school players. Why am I telling you this? Because you will see a lot of examples once we get to the draft of guys who get drafted in a slot that you're really confused why they just got taken. And not because it's a bad player, but because somebody else showed you a mock draft where that guy was going 67th and he just went 28th. So what we're getting at here is know that these guys have numbers, and the MLB draft has a lot to do with how do you use your budget the most effectively to bring in the highest value crop of players. And you're going to see teams do that upcoming. There will be more examples of this phenomena as we move on and teach you a little bit more about the draft and bring people on. But we're very excited to share that with you guys because the MLB draft is a pretty cool thing. Now, you do have to generally wait 1.5 to 4 years to see those guys play at the big league level, but we're going to hope everybody does their job and everybody gets there, which is not possible, but I'm an optimist, so here we are. Past that, being an optimist is a pretty good segue into Jackson roasting us for anything we did wrong this week. Jackson, am I optimistic for the right reasons? Tell us more.
All right, Ryan, you got a lot to be optimistic for this week. Not a bad week for you at all. Starting off with Flax. I did count the Cal Raleigh top 5 catcher. I looked at metrics. He's 12th in run value, 7th in framing, 48th in blocks, and 6th in Fangraphs defensive runs. So I did knock that for you. I had to put that on there.
That's fair.
The next up, the only other point thing of the week, Ryan. I'm giving you -1 for turning 30 as a sympathy.
Yes!
Wow.
And fun fact of the week, you have more home runs at the age of 29 or older than Cal Raleigh does.
That's funny.
Come on with it. That's right, Cal. Come
There
catch
you
me.
go.
Let's go. That was great.
You better start building your lead.
And then
Like soon.
Next up, during the episode, I got called out to bring some stats to the table. Cal Raleigh's first 14 games was hitting 169, 283, 396 for a 680 OPS.
Bang,
There it is.
Ryan. Well done.
There we go.
And also, while I was listening to the episode, he hit number 32. I just thought that had to
Yes,
be
he
put
did.
out there.
Dude,
Yes, he did. He
big
is
dumper,
so good.
torpedo, thumpers. We've tried to
Judge
tell-
Judge also hit a home run.
Who cares? Last thought of the week, guys. Jose Ramirez, 3rd place in AL MVP voting, 910 OPS, 13 homers, 20 stolen bases. Put him down. Let's go. Lock it
That's
in.
such a
people.
swing and a miss by
Lock it
us.
in. Ryan lived in Cleveland for a while.
times.
Let's go. There's nothing else in
see, even
Cleveland
Jackson
but Jose Ramirez. So let's go.
Wow. What a swing and a miss.
I apologize to all of my friends in Northeast Ohio. I failed you. I failed you. All right, well, a lot of ups and downs in this segment this week, but I feel as if I got going the right direction this week, so I'm happy about it.
That was a 2-shot swing for you. I lost a point, or I gained a point. You lost a point. Came back to the field.
Here's where we are right now. Forgot to give our update. Ryan, you're down
Please.
to 8, Flags up to 6, and I still got my 1.
Wow. I have a weird feeling Jackson's not paying for the steak dinner. Awesome. All right, well, as always, we appreciate you, Jackson. We appreciate everybody listening. Have a great week.